So now that WatchOS 10 has come out and the Fenix 7 Pro, should I upgrade my 7X? No, hang on a minute. If something happened to my Fenix 7X, say I dropped it, damaged it, lost it, what would I replace it with? Would it be another Garmin watch, or would it be an Apple Watch, specifically the Apple Watch Ultra? Garmin, since my watch came out, have introduced the Pro versions of the Fenix and also the Epix watches, adding some hardware and quite a few software updates to it. A couple of months or so before that, they made some fairly major upgrades to some of their Forerunner watches, including the Forerunner 965, which is the ultimate endurance triathlete sports watch. They added an AMOLED display to that watch, which was previously an LCD or MIPS display, so that was a pretty significant update to a watch range that's been around for quite some time. Shortly after Garmin came out with their new Pro launches, Apple had its Worldwide Developer Conference. This time, significantly, they talked about Apple WatchOS 10. Apple always holds the Worldwide Developer Conference in June, so the timing of Garmin's release of their Pro models a week or so before that Worldwide Developer Conference from Apple, it's not a coincidence. Garmin have dominated the sports watch, particularly the endurance athlete sports watch market, for quite some time now. When Apple launched the Ultra, which was sometime in 2022, that was quite a wake-up call for Garmin. It can be quite flattering to have a company like Apple looking at your core market, but I imagine it's pretty scary as well. Garmin have reacted a number of ways to Apple's focus on their market. The AMOLED display rollout has got to be part of that. The LTE rollout, so you've got connectivity on at least one of Garmin's watches, has got to be part of that. And I think those things have been pretty good interpretations of what needs to be done by Garmin to compete with Apple. The solar charging also of some of their watches, including this Fenix, is also something good, and I don't think Apple can actually compete with that. But there are other things that miss. So music on a Garmin, not so sure. And Garmin Pay? Nah, sorry. As a company, Garmin has other segments too. They have a marine business, they have an aviation business, they also have an automotive business. Some of those segments are as large as the fitness watch segment is for Garmin. The marine business is quite large, so is the aviation. Automotive, not so much, but they are trying to break into that market, so it's perhaps a bit different. The fitness watch segment is actually the least profitable of the large revenue segments that Garmin operates in. I'm not concerned about Garmin's future. Garmin does have a solid future, but I think it's in their interest to maintain their presence in the fitness watch segment, even with the onslaught coming from Apple that clearly is going to accelerate, because a lot of the visibility to consumers like you and I of the Garmin brand really comes from the watch segment today. Now the Fenix, the Tactics, and the Epix watches are not regarded by Garmin as fitness watches. They're regarded as adventure watches. And the adventure segment also includes handheld eTrex units for GPS, but the operating system of the watch of something like this Fenix is pretty much identical to, say, a 965 watch. So someone like me who is a triathlete, I'm really using it as a fitness watch, even though Garmin regards my purchase of a Fenix as an adventure watch. Go figure that one out. Apple doesn't do that. Apple clearly identifies health and fitness as being the main reasons these days that you'd want to buy an Apple Watch, particularly the Ultra. The health side of it is really where I think Apple is succeeding very, very well and attracting a lot of consumer interest from people who otherwise wouldn't have bought a smartwatch. And the fitness side of it is clearly where they're focused now with the Ultra and the updates with WatchOS 10. So let's look at the things that I think would be important to me as an athlete looking to potentially buy a new watch. I'll start with Apple, and I'm going to focus just on the Ultra. I'm not going to even look at the other versions of the Apple Watch now. It has an eSIM in it, so it's permanently connected, so you can, in theory, leave your phone behind. You have Apple Pay on there, so you can pay for things while you're out running. You've also got Apple Music on there, so you can listen to music through your wireless devices while you're out running or cycling, although I don't use headphones when I'm cycling. It has a wider range of health metrics, and I'm talking here about health rather than statistical data related to training. It's an Apple device, so it's fully integrated with my phone, my iPad, my CarPlay, my Mac, my AirPods, everything. I mean, I am fully Apple with the exception of my watch. With WatchOS 10, there is more connectivity now to different Bluetooth sensors, cadence sensors, power meters, etc., that were not there previously. Can't deny it. What they've done with the Ultra looks pretty cool. Lastly, The Apple Watch Ultra is also a dive watch. Now, diving and triathlon do not go together. But like everybody, I have more than one interest. I also do some diving. So the dive watch features of the Apple Watch Ultra are of interest to someone like me. I'll talk a bit more about that separately. Looking now at some of the negatives or the cons of an Apple Watch Ultra right now, for somebody like me, the battery life isn't long enough. The whole idea about just topping it up, putting it on charge while I'm sitting at my desk writing something, nah, not for me. So I don't like that. It doesn't have and+. And that means some of my sensors, including my Swim VASA ergometer and also the power meter on one of my bikes, will not operate with an Apple Watch. This list is getting shorter, but some of the fitness apps on an Apple Watch are nowhere near as slick and integrated as they are on a Garmin watch. You need to be pretty solidly entrenched in Apple devices, at least have an iPhone, for you to be able to get any of the benefits of an Apple Watch. So you can't really use it with an Android system phone. iOS, that's Apple, is 28% of the global cell phone market. There's a few little bits and pieces, but the balance of that, that's 72%, that's Android. So almost 3/4 of the global cell phone market is not Apple. Technically, WatchOS 10 is not available till September. The beta versions are going to be out sometime this month, but the actual full version for consumers is not going to be available till September. It's not really an athlete's watch. It still looks like an Apple Watch. So why would I choose a Garmin watch again? Well, firstly, familiarity. I've had Garmin running watches now for nearly 20 years, so I'm very familiar with how the Garmin watches operate. They have insane battery life. I mean, really, there is no point in discussing it anymore. Even the Epix Pro in the 51mm size has a 31-day battery life with an AMOLED display. It doesn't matter what brand of phone you have, whether you are Android or Apple, doesn't matter. They have an app for both systems, and those apps are pretty slick these days. Garmin doesn't always have a good reputation for having good phone apps, but this is a good one. It looks like an athlete's watch. It just does. And most pros use them. If you look at most of the pros out on the Ironman circuit or any other professional endurance athletics sports, they're also using Garmin watches right now. And that does have an impact on consumer perception and consumer buying, including mine. What are the downsides of a Garmin watch? Well, in my case, in the Fenix, whether it's the 7X that I have or whether it's the Pro, it's still a MIPS display. It's not a touch to look at on an AMOLED display such as on the Epix watch or on the Apple watches. There is no eSIM, which means you don't have the connectivity that you have with pretty much any version of the Apple Watch that you would get these days. It's not fully integrated in the Apple ecosystem, doesn't work with Apple Pay. Same also with music. I use Apple Music. I don't use Spotify. I don't use Amazon Music. So I would have to, with a Garmin watch, I'd have to sign up to a different music streaming provider on top of the money I'm already paying for Apple Music. Don't need to do that with an Apple Watch, but with my Garmin, I would have to. So you can't really leave your phone behind if you've got a Garmin watch with you. I mentioned earlier that 28% of the world is using iOS or Apple iPhones. Well, if you look specifically in the US, it's the other way around. 57% of the US market is on Apple iPhone, which means really it's not such a negative for an Apple Watch to be using iOS and be dedicated to Apple, because most people are using Apple devices in this country anyway. Taking all that into account, if I was going to replace my Fenix 7X today with an Apple Watch or a Garmin watch, which way would I go? Well, I have to say that decision is getting harder and harder. The Ultra has made me look up a bit more and think about it a bit more seriously than I would otherwise have done. But I use my camera on my phone every day, multiple times a day, including when I'm out running, occasionally when I'm out cycling. I might take some selfies, I might take some movie, I might take some shots at a sunrise because I do tend to cycle quite early sometimes. So I would still carry my phone even if I had an Apple Watch Ultra for probably 95% of the runs that I would do. I recharge my Fenix probably once every 10 days. And even then, it may be down to 50% charge. It probably isn't, but it may be. So that whole thing about charging up your watch during the day, it just doesn't do it for me. But the case for replacing my Garmin watches with another Garmin watch in the future gets weaker and weaker every year. I'm narrowing it down now to 4 different things. It's battery life, it's having a camera on me, it's having and+, and it's the fact that a Fenix still looks like an endurance triathlete's watch. That's it. There's nothing else really keeping me away from Apple Watch Ultra right now. The Apple Watch Ultra had not come out when I bought my Fenix 7X, so there wasn't really a discussion, but today I would look at the Ultra much more seriously than I did previously. I would probably be looking to replace my Fenix 7X sometime in late 2024. What will Apple do to get me more interested in Apple Watch Ultra? They'll improve the battery life. They might improve the display, they might improve the rugged looks of it. They probably won't put ANT+ in there, but let's just assume maybe some of that stuff that I've got that's ANT+ only starts to become more obsolete. But I can see the path of the things that Apple would do to the Ultra to improve it to a point where someone like me would look at the Ultra and go, yeah, that's a good choice. I cannot see anything in Garmin's watch plans that they're going to be able to do that would convince me to stay with Garmin. They can have an AMOLED display on the Fenix. Well, they've got that anyway. I mean, the Epix Pro 51mm looks as close to a Fenix 7X as any other watch that Garmin's come out with, but with the AMOLED display. So really, they've kind of done that already. Battery life, they can't really do anything about that right now because it's already crazy long. And adding solar charging to these different watches is a really nice feature, but I can tell you after a year and a half with a solar charging watch, it's cool and fun, but it's not extending the battery life for someone like me. So if I had to change my watch right now, it would be a really, really tough decision. If I have to change my watch in a year or so time, I think it's going to be an Apple Watch Ultra that replaces my Fenix 7X. I hope this is useful and maybe a bit thought-provoking. If so, please like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you think. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.